what do the Clintons have to gain from still today doing all of this? I mean, at this point, they're pretty old. It doesn't seem like Chelsea is really involved in anything more than television.
Well, Hillary hasn't won a presidency yet, and
Isn't she like
these people
130?
roughly, but if the way she combs the hair over, it hides the horns really well. She hasn't won a presidency yet. The election fraud system is at an all-time high. We have completely electrified our election system, so there is no in-person voting if they don't want it to be. We have ranked choice voting going to 36 states right now, and that's going to make sure that you no longer have party-closed primaries anymore.
What does that mean?
The
ranked choice voting? Because a lot of people may not know what that is.
Yeah, so ranked choice voting means that everyone goes in a line and you can rank however many they say you're allowed to vote for. You rank them in order. So my 1 through 78. Top 4 pass the line, but there's no open. There is still a Republican and Democratic primary, but the problem is they're not closed. So you don't have to declare your party when you go to vote for primaries. So like here in Alaska, when we had our Republican primaries, Democrats were allowed to vote in it. So the person that got elected to run against the Democratic Party was voted in by the Democrats, not the Republicans.
Gotcha. So what's funny is a lot of people look at it as, a bad thing to force to affiliate, right? Because then that eliminates the independent vote. It makes it a lot more difficult. Whereas, because you may only have 2 candidates to choose from because the independent doesn't even exist. So if you're forced to affiliate, then, like you said, the 38 states that don't, but also the downside is because you're not forced to affiliate, then you also are, especially in primaries, because once you register in a forced to affiliate state, you can't just switch. You are stuck for that vote in the general election.
Yes.
But if you don't force to affiliate, then you can vote for one person in the primary and a totally different person in the general.
Yes, and that's exactly what they did here in Alaska. So we had 2 candidates that were exactly in line with what the Republicans' ideals were here. But since the Republican primary wasn't closed, the Republicans didn't get the vote in their own primary. The Democrats came in and voted for Lisa Murkowski. Gotcha. And so 50% of the vote went to Lisa Murkowski. And if any one Republican voted for Lisa Murkowski, she automatically wins your primary. So Republicans don't get to vote in their own elections.
Oh, that's interesting.
To see who gets to run against their.
Wait, so you
don't get
to
see who runs against the other person.
So you can register. So you have to register in the state to vote. But if you don't register, if you haven't registered, then you can vote for anyone you want?
Well, I mean, you still have to register to vote, but you don't have to declare a party.
Right. But
until the general election.
Oh, until the general election.
All primaries were Democratic. They were all Democrats.
Right.
So you weren't allowed to have a Republican in your general election. It was only the top 4 crossed the line. It's a ranked choice voting. So each time they do, whoever crosses, all right, top 24, top 16, top 8, top 4.
Interesting.
Number 1. And by the time I got to number 4, there was no more Republicans because the primaries got shit.
Right.
They were allowed to vote in your election. That would be like me going to Mexico and voting for their president. It doesn't make any sense. You're not allowed to vote for our primary. It's a closed system within our system. If I want to affiliate within, I'm not allowed to go vote in who becomes the president of the Freemasons.
Right.
Why are they allowed to be who comes the leader of the Republican Party?
Right.
Just because it's a ranked choice voting? To me, I looked at it as it's a.
How many states do it like this?
So last year or during the midterm elections, I think it was 12 did ranked choice voting. But since then, the country has been pushing to get all states to go like this because they can make sure that you won't have a closed primary no more. If ranked choice voting goes through, all 50 states get only Democratic candidates, and then you get to choose which Democratic candidate you like most, and then conservatives, Republicans, independents, Green Party, Tea Party.
But they risk the same thing on the other side, right?
Well, the problem is Republicans don't vote as much. So if you don't, they will only vote in a general. They work too much. It takes 15 times to vote in a ranked choice voting. You have to go out and vote every week. As the system falls off the next people, you got to go revote.
Good God.
Vote. So 15 times.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah, if you're a working class person, try requesting 15 days off over 2 months just to go vote.
Right.
You know who can't? People who don't work.
Right. Well, you know what's funny is that then that gives credence to what the left has been asking for, and the right has been asking for, is federal paid time off for voting. And could you imagine at a national level election, like a big one, not just a state election, but if they did ranked choice voting for national, you'd have to take 100 days off. What that would do is that bankrupt all the businesses.
Sounds perfect.
Without bailouts.
You have the Bacchanalia for the cult of Dionysus. So you end up with sex, drugs, rock and roll, all distractions. And then on top of it, you put in a convoluted, difficult to understand, impossible to read election system. And then you make that stretch out over the entire year. By the time the person actually gets elected, no one will ever want to do the process again. And they will just say, whatever happens, let it keep going. Whatever happens. Once something becomes too difficult for someone to understand, their brain shuts off and they go into autopilot mode. That's why the narrative of confusion works so well in the media, because the more that you scare people, you give them two different ideas, you make them combat each other. No one knows what's going on. They get paralysis through analysis. They stand still like a goat in the fucking headlights. And the next thing that you know, all your rights are being taken away from you. And you never realized what was happening because everything was so confusing. Your eyes glazed over and you just focused on going to work.